Hello everyone and welcome to Radical Thinker. Today is Saturday, April 26, and we are entering day 58 of the American and Israeli war imposed on the Islamic Republic of Iran. Yesterday, Iran's Foreign Minister Sayed Abbas Araghchi returned to Islamabad as part of a longer regional tour which will include visits in Pakistan, also in Oman, in Muscat and in Russia. The scope of this visit was to continue to have discussions with the Pakistani mediators. Araghchi emphasized the 10 conditions plan and the full commitment that Iran has to them. The 10 conditions plan, which was initially accepted by Donald Trump as the basis for indirect negotiations in Pakistan, but later Trump and his administration changed their mind and they said that they are not interested at all on discussing on the 10 conditions that Iran has. Foreign Minister Araghchi underlined Iran's readiness for rational and fair negotiations with the Americans, and he said that the United States has no right to set red lines for talks. The Iranian foreign minister told the Pakistanis that Iran will not surrender to US excesses, including the naval blockade, and he also stressed the need for Pakistan to remain a neutral mediator between the United States and the Islamic Republic of Iran. Araghchi manifested his skepticism towards the Americans and said Iran has yet to see if the United States is truly serious about diplomacy. The American president didn't take Araghchi's comments too well, and he told Fox News, "I told Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff that they won't be making the 18-hour trip to Islamabad. We are in a stalemate. We have a naval blockade on one side, we have the Strait of Hormuz completely controlled by the Iranians, and we have a mediating side, the Pakistanis, trying to find ways of bringing the Americans and the Iranians once again at the same table in Islamabad. The chances for a peaceful and diplomatic resolution of this conflict are really slim because the Americans seem to bring more and more troops and more warships in the region, taking steps which are showing clearly that they are taking steps to engage into another round of warfare with the Iranians." In yesterday's episode, I was discussing about the Kurds and how they have been multiple times betrayed by the Americans, and how now during the conflict with Iran, Trump and his administration was putting a lot of pressure on Kurdish separatist groups to engage in war against the Islamic Republic. It seems we have payback for the Kurds for not playing along. Masoud Barzani, which was a former president of the Iraqi Kurdistan and an important leader of the Kurds in Iraq, had his house seized in Beverly Hills yesterday by the American authorities. Trump said a few weeks ago that he will go forward and punish Kurds for not smuggling enough weapons to Iran, which the US gave them so they can be used by terrorist forces for toppling the Iranian government. Trump claimed Kurds kept those beautiful weapons for themselves. The American Department of Justice seized one of the palaces belonging to Mansour Barzani after one of the American companies that had been supplying fuel to the US Army in Iraq submitted a document proving that Masoud Barzani's son Mansour demanded a bribe of 20 cents per liter of fuel, and according to the Department of Justice, during the period from 2016 to 2020, $30 million was transferred to Mansour Barzani's account in the United States. The palace was purchased in the Beverly Hills area of California. So the friendship didn't last too long, and as always happens, the small fish gets eaten by the big fish, in this case the Kurds, because they didn't comply and they didn't go along well with the Americans when the United States demanded them to go to fight against Iran. Now the Americans are angry and want to take revenge on the Kurds for not complying with Washington's demands. Unfortunately for the Kurds, this is what happens when small groups are playing the dirty games of colonial powers. They never end up well, and in general they get betrayed and left behind. And this is just the beginning. Most probably the Americans are going to continue and they are going to label certain Kurdish groups as terrorists just to retaliate against these groups for not answering positive to Washington's demands. Unfortunately for the Kurds, as I was saying also yesterday, their future doesn't look too bright, and their continuous collaboration with the Americans didn't pay off. We can clearly see this. It didn't pay off in Syria, it didn't pay off in Iraq, and also it doesn't seem to pay off in Iran, where they have limited influence when it comes to separatist groups, but still they had some plans to take over the Iranian Kurdistan region. Fortunately, these plans didn't work out. The Iranian state is very strong. Its armed forces are very capable of protecting the border and of keeping the situation calm inside the country. In the end, the Kurds and by extension their American masters didn't achieve anything from what they initially wanted to achieve. The naval blockade in the Persian Gulf was overshadowed by the news that shots were fired at the White House Correspondents Association dinner where President Donald Trump was attending a few hours ago. He has been evacuated from the ballroom together with the American Vice President J.D. Vance and other important American officials. Although according to initial news the shooter was killed by the Secret Service, according to Fox News and later according according to Donald Trump himself, the suspect was apprehended rather than killed. The suspect, called Thomas Allen, was identified as a 31-year-old teacher from Torrance, California. In the end, no one got killed, but the American press was quick to ask President Donald Trump if he thinks that this shooting is somehow related to the situation with Iran. He said, "I don't think so, but you never know. The shooting will not deter me from winning the war in Iran. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. I really don't think so, based on what we know," President Trump told the American media a few hours ago. Honestly, this looks to me like a staged event. I cannot even comprehend how a guy who had a shotgun, multiple other hand weapons and multiple knives, how he could enter the ballroom in such a secure area at the White House, and how the Secret Service engaged this guy only when he started to shoot at them. This looks made up to me, and I think it's an event created for the sole purpose of changing people's attention from the situation in the Middle East to this staged assassination attempt. It seems to be a staged event, and one which has not even been planned properly. There are a lot of questions about what really happened there, but all the available information leads to the conclusion that this is a staged event. Donald Trump gets desperate. He is put under a lot of pressure because he cannot conclude successfully the war with Iran. He doesn't seem to be able to find a solution. MAGA base is angry with him because they didn't vote Donald Trump to become president for a second term to start a war with Iran. So he's trying somehow to redirect people's attention from the situation in the Middle East and from the economical problems that the United States has to such breaking news type of events. Probably Donald Trump thinks that if he's surviving this kind of staged assassination attempts, he's going to become again more popular, at least for his MAGA base, if not for more Americans. But this is doomed to fail. I think many people in the United States, as well as many people all over the world, they are really fed up with Donald Trump and with his administration, and with the fact that they are just stooges for Israel and that they are dragging the global economy into a disaster for no strategic purpose at all. Everything that the Americans have been doing since the beginning of the war with Iran, it's counterproductive, has no logic, and on contrary is very disruptive, not only for the Middle Eastern region, but also on a global scale. It affects especially the West, the European allies, which have a lot of economic problems, and these problems don't seem to have a solution for the near future. By continuing this war with Iran, Trump is emptying the American budget, and he's not getting anything in return. There is no gain from this war, and he knows it very well. But on the other hand, the Israeli lobby and its pressure is very big, so most probably he's going to continue the hostilities for another month or even longer, who knows. In this time, we might see certain events like this staged up assassination attempt aimed at manipulating the American people, so they are not going to continue to focus on their economic problems, on the fact that they are engaged in a war which is not even theirs. Who knows, maybe someone in Hollywood is already writing the script for a new Hollywood movie or for a Netflix series regarding Donald Trump and how he magically survives every time someone tries to kill him. This situation is getting more and more ridiculous, and it's obvious someone is getting really desperate and wants to find a solution to get out from the current situation. Maybe it ain't a coincidence that this assassination attempt, or what it was supposed to be, took place in the same day when NBC News, citing US officials and congressional aides, announced that Iran has inflicted significantly more damage on American military bases in the Middle East than what was publicly disclosed. US installations and equipment in the Gulf countries continuously came under attack, including from an Iranian F-5 fighter. The extent of the damage is said to be substantial, with repair costs potentially running into the billions of dollars. Despite heavy American and Israeli censorship, the reality on the ground is that Iran was successful in destroying most of the American bases in the Middle East. On top of that, a thing that most people overlooked is that Iran literally bombed an American base using a 6-decade-old fighter. I'm talking about the F-5. I'm talking about the F-5 fighter jet, which is a very old airplane. And still, Iran, by using this fighter jet, was able to destroy important American military technology in the Gulf countries. This is astonishing, and people should really reflect on the courage of these Iranian pilots. They most probably knew clearly that if they are going to use the F-5 against the Americans, the chances of surviving will be very, very slim. And still they managed to achieve the goal of their mission. They successfully bombed American installation, radars, and other key American military assets. One could only imagine what Iran could have been capable of doing if they would have received in time the Sukhoi 35 fighter jets from the Russians. Donald Trump once again survived the staged assassination attempt. The situation in the Middle East remains tense. The naval blockade continues. The Iranians and the Americans are not returning to the negotiating table, although the Pakistani mediators have tried to bring them together again. The price of the oil barrel is not going down, and the prospects of returning to hostilities is getting bigger and bigger. But we are going to see how things are going to evolve. If you like my content, as always, please share, like, follow, subscribe. Until tomorrow, I am wishing you all the best.